everyone, and welcome to the WIIM podcast. Women in Influencer Marketing is a first-of-its-kind exclusive networking group made up of inspirational women. This podcast is where we explore influencer marketing and get real about women in business. Find us wherever you download podcasts, and of course, you can always find us at IamWIIM.com. That's IamWIIM.com. Hi, guys, and welcome to Women in Influencer Marketing, the podcast. My name is Jessie Grossman. And if you happen to be watching on video on Spotify or YouTube, you can see my co-host today. Oh, he's making such an appearance. This is Buster the cat. I've had Buster since I was a sophomore in college. He usually lets me record and do my own thing during the day. We were out of town this whole weekend, went to go visit family. So I think he's a little extra needy and just wants some extra snuggles, right, baby? Yeah. So he wanted to sit in my lap and I needed to record this. So he's going to be my co-host. Feel free to chime in, Buster. Okay? Okay. That's the reason to watch on YouTube or Spotify. So you can see this cute little face. Oh my goodness. I think this is probably his first appearance on the podcast. But oh my God, do you want to hear the funnest fun fact? Buster is no stranger to the masses. Buster Grossman, this guy right here, has actually been on The Blacklist, the show, the TV show. I shit you not. Years ago. It's such a long story, so I'm definitely not getting into it. Maybe some other day. Hi, cutie. He was actually a cat featured on an episode of The Blacklist. I got him on the TV show and it was crazy and so fun. And I was the proudest cat mommy. So this is not his first rodeo. So beyond Buster being on the show today, it's a really exciting week because we have our influencer marketing job fair this week. So if you're listening to this episode the day that it comes out, then the job fair is tomorrow. It's August 17th at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm so excited for this. It's everything that I enjoy. It's being able to get our members hired, the ability to connect you guys with each other, all the good things. So that is taking place on Wednesday, August 17th, 6 p.m. I will drop a link to register in the show notes, but you can also just head to our website. It's IamWIIM.com/events. And you'll be able to register there. So beyond that, we have such a great guest for you today. This is Katie Stoller. So she is a good friend of mine. She's been a member of WIIM for quite a long time, pretty much since the very beginning. So I've known her at all the different companies that she's been with since then. Today, she's the head of influencer marketing at Fiat Growth, which is a growth marketing shop focused on data-backed decision-making, innovation, iteration, and execution. So yes, we talk about influencer marketing today, but I really enjoyed this episode because of all the times we didn't talk about influencer marketing today. We spoke a lot about her kids. She's a mom of two working in a big city, how to be the only mom in her friend group that has, a job that needs her during odd hours. We just talked about her path, the struggles that she goes through, and Katie being the awesome woman that she is, which is very candid about all that. So I think you're really going to enjoy our conversation today. So a little bit about her. So she's had a decade of experience at PR agencies. She counsels clients on how to effectively reach goals by working with brand right influencers to tell compelling and engaging stories. During her career, she's worked with brands big and small across multiple verticals. Again, she's worked at really huge agencies with, huge, awesome, exciting brand clients. Some of the large brands that she's worked with include household names like IKEA, LG, Whirlpool, Smucker Co, General Mills, and Wendy's. She holds a BA from the University of Illinois and an MA from DePaul University's award-winning PRAD program. She is a proud member of WIIM. And she's also based in Chicago with her husband, Danny, and her kids, Liam and Brooke. So enjoy this week's episode. I do hope to see you at the job fair this week. And also, if you've been sort of on the fence about joining WIIM, come to the job fair, because not only can you get your next job, but we're also giving really, really good promotions out to people who stay till the very end of the job fair. So check us out again. I'll link that in the show notes. I hope to see you there. And Buster's gonna say goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Enjoy this week's episode. And this is Katie Stoller. Miss Katie, I am so stoked to have you on the show again. But the last time you were here, it was like a 3-person episode. And now you are the only guest. And I'm excited to talk exclusively with you. So thank you for coming on again. And how's it going today?
I know it's my solo debut. It's a big day.
It is. And you were just on another podcast. So we were chatting before we started recording. I was like, girl, you're making the rounds. Like, I'm so proud of you. Like, getting on all the podcasts. Are you a podcast listener as well? Or are you just enjoying like chatting with people and being on their podcast?
I am obsessed with podcasts. I have this like whole thing I've been talking about lately, and this is kind of off topic, but I can't do TikTok and like YouTube because I can't do audio and visual at once
Wait,
because
that's
my
so
brain,
interesting.
yeah, it's like, well, I just don't have time. Like I can't sit and like listen and watch. So that's why like I miss, the scrolling days of Instagram because it was just visual. And I love podcasts because it's just audio. Also shout out to Clubhouse, pretty much RIP at this point, but that's why I loved Clubhouse so much, which is what we talked about a lot on the last episode I was on. But it was so nice to just like pop in my earbuds and just like listen to information, in my head without having to like do anything.
So
So
here's my question.
yeah,
When you're like, okay, so it's one or the other. I love that. I really genuinely appreciate it. I feel like I'm kind of the same way. It's probably why we both really liked Clubhouse.
yeah,
Um, so like when you are listening to a podcast or like a Clubhouse conversation or something just strictly audio, you're just listening, but you're multitasking, first of all, right? You're multitasking. Do you find that you like tune in and out, or are you like genuinely able to multitask?
with like work, I don't do anything because if I'm writing or if I'm like working on like something, like a recap deck or something that takes a little bit more like, of my brain, I'm not listening to a podcast. But if I'm like straightening my hair in the morning before work or doing like household stuff, or even sometimes when I'm just like upstairs with my kids if they're playing and I have my earbuds in, I I love that. I can multitask with like life and audio or life and, scrolling quickly on my phone, but when it comes to like work or doing something like more serious, I'm very much the type of person that needs like complete silence. So, but the
But
thought
you
of like
can
sitting,
But you can actually multitask. I ask because like I I can't really truly do it. Like, because I'm the same way. Like, if I'm cooking dinner, I feel like it's such a nice opportunity to listen to like a podcast that I like versus like everybody else in the house. And so, like, I'll cook dinner and I'll like listen to a podcast and like I'll like I don't know. I can't fully do it. So you really can if it's like a pretty casual secondary activity, right?
correct? Yes, if it's secondary, like we do HelloFresh pretty much, I think like 3 times a week. I'm the laziest cook alive, but when I'm doing my HelloFresh, I do have to pause it if there's like a particularly hard recipe piece, or if it's like, a little bit like longer of a paragraph, I usually have to pause for a second, but I'm pretty good. I'm training myself to be able to like do both things. But if it's anything above like laundry, cooking, playing with my kids level of brain capacity, I'm only a one woman show in terms of one thing at a time at that point.
No, I love it. I'm asking for a friend. Asking for a friend. Yeah, and I love it because this podcast is certainly not sponsored by HelloFresh, but I love those services. I do. We did Factor for a while, because HelloFresh, you still have to, like, cook the fricking thing. And if you're like busier, like, or just not in the mood, I'm just not naturally like that much of a cook. I liked Factor personally because it was like bit of an emphasis on like healthy meals. But also they were like pre-cooked. You stick them in the microwave and you're good to go. You really like, have you tried any of the other ones besides HelloFresh, or you're like a true HelloFresh girl?
We haven't, and mostly just because 'cause I'm lazy and haven't, like, tried anything else. I did, Daily Harvest for a while, and I didn't really like the food that much. No offense, Daily Harvest, if anyone's listening. I like the smoothies, but the food wasn't very good. But yeah, I like the idea that, like, I'm forced to cook, even though it's, like, food that's, like, literally pre-measured and everything. The idea that I'm, like, forced to do it, and I know at least a couple meals a week my kids are getting, like, somewhat healthy food, and then we can do chicken nuggets and pizza for the other nights. That just, like, makes me feel, like, somewhat accomplished in that world because 'cause I'm the least creative person in the kitchen.
So I really freaking appreciate that, I gotta say, like, being forced to cook, like so I'm it's similar but different, like, so I'm really, really bad at math. My brain just, like, doesn't really naturally I have to, like, really focus to, like, have my brain compute math. So, whenever I'm out and I'm, like, filling, out a check and, like, adding a tip, I always add a tip that doesn't end in an even number so that it forces me to do the math, and in my mind, I'm like, "Yeah, like, this will, like, force my brain to, like, compute math, and, like, therefore, I'll be better at it." Well, that literally never happens, but, like, I can appreciate kinda, like, forcing yourself to do something that, like, you're not good at or you don't enjoy necessarily, and so, like, how many meals a week do you get with them?
There's 4 people in my family, but one of them is a baby, but she still eats a lot. So we did 2 meals of 4 people, and we were throwing away so much food, which is literally the entire purpose of doing a meal kit. So I moved it to 3 meals a week for 2 people, and then if people don't eat it, I don't feel as bad because 'cause we're not throwing as much food away. So it took me a while to, like, figure that out, but I mean, it's expensive, like, on top of the fact that we also grocery shop, so I don't even know. I don't know. I feel like I'm just, like, winging it with parenthood and being an adult every day, and it's worked, like, enough. But, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's probably a better way to go about all this and probably a cheaper way to go about it, but this is just what I'm jiving with right now, so
So tell everyone who's tuning in who don't necessarily know you yet, but they're definitely going to know you more by the end of this conversation. Tell everyone how many kids you have and how old they are.
yeah, so I have 2 kids. Liam is going to be 4 in November, and Brooke is gonna be 2 in November. They're both born, like, right at the end of November, 2 years apart. So
I love those names. They're such good names. Where did they come from? Like, where did they come from? Where did the names come from? I know where the babies came from. Are they named after anyone in particular?
Liam, we just like the name, and I think there was, like, an L connection. I honestly, like, can't even think about it right now. His middle name is a family name, Liam James. And then Brooke was another name that we both just liked, and her middle name's Callie, which is sort of like a tribute to my, like, California roots because my mom's from California and I lived there for a little bit, and I'm obsessed with everything West Coast. We also just kind of thought it was a cute name, but, I wanted names that weren't nicknames. Like, I grew up as I was born Kate, but always was called Katie, and it was so annoying as a little kid having to, like, explain that, and then people were like, "Oh, that's a weird, like, it's usually Catherine or Kathleen or whatever." So I pledged that my kids would never have to, like, have those awkward conversations, so I wanted names that, like, we named them were just gonna be their name.
But
That I
the
probably
wait,
thought way more about that than most people do, but
no way. Oh my god, that is like the biggest like, that is the first big decision of having any kid. This is the name they're gonna stick with probably their entire life. So and I'm like a self-proclaimed like name like how do I even describe it? I'm like very judgy about names, which kind of sounds crazy, but I really also simultaneously appreciate a really good name. Liam James, for example, like the first name and the middle name, like going so well together. That's really good. And was it Brooke Callie? I
yeah.
love those. Is
Thank
it
you. Oh my god,
CALI?
I'm, like, so, like, happy that you like them.
I love them. They're both really genuinely really good names. Is it CALI for
Yeah,
Callie? That's cool. Oh, 2 thumbs up.
thank you. Oh my
Those are
god.
great, great names. All right. So this is like naturally going to lead me into asking you a little bit about like what it is to be a mom of two and, very much like focused on your career. I mean, you've been at some incredible companies. We heard a bit about you in the intro to the podcast and, the companies that you've worked for and everything. And they're really impressive companies. And, you're somebody that from the outside, I've always looked and seen, wow, like you're really doing great things. And I'm really impressed with, the companies that you're at and the work that you're working on. And I think it's incredible. And I honestly, I think it's even extra incredible because you also have two young kids. I only have one and I have her part-time because I'm her stepmom. And so I am also simultaneously like incredibly impressed that you're able to do it all. Give us like the real deal. Like, what are the struggles? What are what would you tell maybe somebody else who's like strongly considering it? Having kids, but also like very like in love with their careers as well. Like, what questions would you ask them? Like, what advice would you give? I want to get into parenthood a little bit.
I love this, and I'm, like, so glad that you brought this up because I feel like I think about this stuff all the time, but I'm not in my, like, own personal bubble of, like, my friends and just people in my life that sort of get it because I'm either in, like, businesswoman mode with, like, you and all the WIIM ladies or my work, or I'm in, like, my life at home mode, but my body is in both. So, like, I love that, like, you brought this up, and I'm, like, very happy to talk about it. I think it stems from the fact that, like, when I was a little girl, like, little, like kindergarten level, I knew I wanted to, like, be something cool in my job. Like, it was just a non-negotiable. The same way people grow up and are like, "I wanna be a mom," and I had both of those. Like, I knew I wanted to be a mom, that was, like, obvious, like, there was never a question, and I wanted to, like, be a sort of a youngish mom. I mean, I had my kids when I was 33, so I wasn't that young, but I just knew I wanted that and I was gonna get it. Like, that was not another, like, non-negotiable, but I was not gonna do it at the, like, sacrifice of my job, and I didn't. Like, and I know that, like, it's a little bit taboo to say you can have it all. People are like, "You can't have it all, that doesn't exist," but, like, if you work really hard at both, you can, and I feel like I do. I don't think I'm perfect by any stretch. I think sometimes I'm, like, a hot mess of a mom, and there's times at my job I'm like, "I wish I had more time to devote to this," but if you really want both, you can have it. And like I think that it just takes a lot of kind of being crafty and time management is key. And I've always been really, really good at managing my time my entire life. Um, and I just made them both work. Like I decided one day when I was 6 or whatever that I wanted to be a career woman and I chased it and I didn't stop until I got it. And I know that that sounds a little bit cliche, but it's true. I mean, it was not like a very easy path for me either. I worked at 3 of the top PR agencies and was an intern for a really long time for a lot of different places. It was not an easy journey to get to kind of like where I am now, but I was not gonna stop until I got.
And so let's talk a little bit first, because I'm really jazzed that you also want to talk about this because I don't necessarily meet a ton of moms who like are like working in our industry specifically and not I don't know I don't know a lot of other moms my age, to be honest with you, similar maybe to your experience. I mean, I met Zoe when she was 3, and she's about to turn 7, and and I'm about to turn 30. Anyway, like I became a mom overnight when I was like 30. What is that, like 33, let's say? And so in like anywhere else in the country, I feel like we are like old moms. But it's interesting, like in the cities that we live in, like bigger cities, like I don't know, maybe we're average or maybe even like young moms in some people's minds. But I'm curious, like I want to hear first like the real talk struggles. Like when are moments where you really have to work a little extra hard to make it all work and balance everything? What are those moments look like and how do you make it happen?
I think high level, my biggest struggle is just not having a ton of people, kind of like what you're saying, that get it. Like my very closest friends that are in WIIM that I, talk to, my manager friends are these like successful, badass women that don't have kids. And I envy their lifestyle in some regard because they can kind of do what they want. They can fly to a panel and speak on a panel. They can, go network on a Wednesday night. Like they can do all this stuff that I can't do. And I love that they're, like, chasing their careers, and I, wanna do that, but I just have the boundaries that I can't do a lot of that stuff. So, I mean, that's one of the biggest struggles, and on the flip side, where I live in the suburbs of Chicago, most of my very close friends are teachers, so they get summers off, and during the school year, they're off, bopping around after 3 o'clock. I mean, obviously, some of them are working past that, but, it's a lot more of, like, a flexible type of lifestyle for the most part, and there's no one really like me that's kind of like hustling on both ends of the stick. And it's difficult, I mean, there's a couple people in my life that are in similar situations. Some of my agency friends that I still keep in touch with have kids, but that's really the hardest for me is just like finding my like tribe of people that are similar. And then from a tactical perspective, it's, I'm good at time management. I kind of have it down to a science at this point. But there are days where like everyone's out with their kids doing things, and I have, like, 6 calls for work, and I'm also, doing a podcast or doing something for my own personal development. Because I think that's the other layer to this is that a lot of people just go to their 9 to 5, kind of clock in and clock out, and then are with their kids, or they're stay-at-home moms, and they're with their kids all day, and then they clock out and, are doing stuff with their husband or stuff with their home at night. But for me, it's like I'm doing both of those things, but I'm also very, very into like self promotion for my own brand. It's always been something, important to me to get out there and talk about this industry that I love so much. So I kind of I have like 3 full-time jobs if you think about it, which is like kind of insane. I don't know if I'm smart or insane or both. But yeah, I mean it's just kind of like the day to day and am I doing enough on each end of the stick? That's kind of my everyday struggle. Is just that, did I spend enough time with the kids before daycare this morning? Did I spend enough time on this report for work? Like just making sure that I'm giving everyone
And then giving yourself enough attention. I mean, that is what I've learned as like a somewhat recent mother. Like the guilt is real and like the I don't know, the constant wondering if you are doing enough, and doing it how you want it. Cause like you only get this short amount of time when they're this age and that age. And like, but the same also for me at least, like extends into the work that I'm doing. It's like I would never like, I don't know, it's like taboo to say that they're equally as important, but like I don't know. Sometimes, like, they are in different ways. I don't know. It's like, I don't know why that's even hard to admit, but I'm curious. So, like, there are, I appreciate when you're saying like one of the biggest struggles is just like finding people that get it. I almost want to like my mind is spinning in maybe something that we could do through WIIM to make more moms like connect with each other. But I hear that. So then you got to overcome that somehow, and you're doing a great job. And you said you're like people say that you can't do it all, but like here I am doing it all. So, what would you say is your superpower and how are you able to do it all?
I think I'm just really good at I said time management, but it's really just like scheduling and structuring and like sticking to it. Like we get the kids out the door by 7:30. It is literally down to a science of like when each child wakes up. And obviously the kids change that, but my husband and I are very good about like regimented mornings, regimented bedtime, like we're just good at kind of like compartmentalizing. And when we're with the kids, we're really engaged with the kids. We like to all eat dinner together, obviously. Um, we have like a playtime routine upstairs at night. And then when I'm in front of my computer, I'm very good about blocking my calendar. So if I want to do a podcast like today, it's a Tuesday in the middle of the workday, I blocked it months ago so that no clients would book time, no one internal in my company would book time so that I can do something for myself. Because to me, this is like part of my self care is, doing stuff for my own personal brand. And getting to talk to people about the industry. And it's great for my company too. I work, at an amazing startup, Fiat Growth. And the founders, Drew and Alex, are awesome. And they want us to, promote our own endeavors and our own careers. And it's important, I like we need to be doing things that fill our cup and make us feel good. And talking with industry people about this industry is something that I enjoy. So it's important to me, and I make sure to schedule those things in advance. That's the other thing is I think people look at me and they're like, all this cool stuff just sort of happens. Like, and I'm like, do you understand the amount of planning and time that goes into all these like random cool things that just, pop up? Like, I take the time to like research different podcasts and, different articles that I contribute to and panels I'm on. Like, I pitch myself. Like, that's my PR background, but it's not like it's just popping up out of nowhere. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. Um,
So we actually just got in a question from, so our members can tune in live and ask questions. And so it's like perfect transition to ask you this question. And the question is from Emmy. And Emmy is wondering, are you strict about setting work hours like 9 to 5, 10 to 7, like whatever your work hours are? But are you pretty strict about it? Especially since, we're chatting all about kids.
Yeah, hi, Emmy. I'm actually not, and this is probably also kind of taboo. Jesse, you and I are just like throwing out the taboo things all day. I'm not at all. I actually don't like the strict 9 to 5. I know that's like the exact opposite of what everyone says, but working in social media, it's like not really practical a lot of the times. And I would rather sort of stretch my day and be less stressed throughout the day. I think the other thing is that my company is based in California. Most of the people in my company are in California, and a lot of my clients are kind of spread out throughout the country. So I have like kind of free mornings. Like I usually am not doing much until like 10 when people are signing online, which is 8 a.m. and on Pacific time. So I kind of like dilly dally in the morning. Like I kind of like, the first thing I'll do is like my first thing on my to do list just to kind of get it done. I'll like review some content, check in with clients. But then I sort of can like chill for a little bit. And I like the ability to sort of like ebb and flow throughout my day. I think I'm a recovering agency girl. So any agency people out there know exactly what I'm talking about. But
For those of us who don't, like, get into a little bit of that because I want to, I think that's important to know. Like, also, it made you who you are today. So,
yeah,
recovering agency girl, what does that mean a little bit?
yeah. So I was in the agency world for 10 years, and agency life is crazy. For the most part, it's very jam packed. I mean, there's definitely like months and weeks here and there where you're less busy. Clients kind of come and go and stuff. But for the most part, when you've got a full roster of clients, that's probably like 3 to 6, depending on the size and the industry and the agency. You're pretty much busy every waking second that you're signed into your computer. So you really do need those like 9 to 5 boundaries. You could work all night and still have work to do at 8 a.m. So you really do need to say like I'm signing off at this time, like I will address these emails tomorrow. Um I did that for so long, and my life was so kind of like structured in that 9 to 5 and having to like figure out what I'm going to do today and then like anything else was going to be on the next day, and I had this like continuous like flow of work at all times. Now I work for a startup. So, and I'm sort of on a team by myself. Like I have some freelancers that help and interns here and there. But for the influencer department, which is what I run at Fiat, I'm really a one woman show, and I'm putting programs together on like a rolling basis for my clients. Like I'm really a consultant to them over a course of years. So it's not like these like projects that come and go and they're really fast and you got to get all this stuff done and there's all these deadlines. It's really just kind of like working together to get content kind of going over time progressively, if that makes sense. So there's a lot less of this like intense get it done to-do list like in your face. It's a lot more like check in and out throughout the day, and I don't have any issue checking in on a Saturday with my clients when they're not like harassing me Monday through Friday like I'm used to at the agency. So I'm much more open to like take a call at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. Or if a client's busy and they're going to work or they're going on a trip or something and they need me to sign in at 6 a.m. to look at something, fine. Like I'm much more kind of like go with the flow these days just because my whole vibe with my job is a lot more like that. And it makes for like better work in my opinion because I'm able to like be productive during my mental productive hours and sort of check in and out when I need to. And I mean, this is a whole discussion, but the future of work is changing. My founder, Drew Glover, just did a podcast about this. The future of work is side gigs. It's, side hustles and maybe taking 5 part-time jobs to make a full-time job salary. It's, doing things on social media. There's so many different work streams and different ways to make money now. And we're seeing that like happen so fast. The pandemic just like totally fast forwarded that. So I think the way that we work this like 9 to 5 check in, clock out structure is slowly like dissipating, especially for like the Gen Z generation.
It
Um,
is, and you and I have talked about it, before too, and I'm glad that you're bringing it up, and I love that it's sort of, like, coupled also with, like, parenthood and just, like, loving what you do, and, you're talking about personal branding, which is something that I so respect about you, that you've always seemed to, like, get that and prioritize that for yourself, but like you said before, you're like, it's just as good for me as it is for my company. And I love that, you're the is it the CEO or the founder or yeah, of your company now gets that and seems to like even be on podcasts talking about it. So I think that's fantastic. I want to know, like pivoting just slightly. So you're talking about like, this awesome company that you're at now, Fiat Growth, and, you've got lots of different clients. It's considered, I guess, a startup, but like it seems like you guys are working on really great work. I want to know a little bit what you're seeing in terms of the struggles that your clients are seeing pretty regularly.
yeah, so I'll give a little bit of background about Fiat Growth. We're around 3 to 5-ish years old. It's kinda started with Alex and Drew, my founders, and then it developed into, like, a full-fledged company. Now there's, like, 25 of us, full-time employees, but it's a growth consultancy, so anything related to growth, like apps, getting more users, services, like monthly recurring fee services, all in the financial industry, in fintech particularly, and fintech, like, adjacent type of companies. But a lot of the clients we work with are all startups, or mostly startups, from seed stage through like Series A, Series B funding, and then some bigger companies. But for the most part, that's kind of like our sweet spot in those startup fintech companies and based out of Silicon Valley. So it's a very like different world from um, the agency world that I come from, where I was working on like iconic household brand names like IKEA and Kimberly Clark, and things that we use in our house every day. So very different, but our clients are very much new to influencer marketing for the most part. Some of them have, like, somewhat established social channels and have dabbled, but for the most part, a lot of them are coming to us and they're like, "What should we do in this world? Like, we need to touch it. Like, this world is exploding, we're growing. Our whole point of working with Fiat is to grow even more. What can we do with influencers to help, like, expedite that growth?" So my job is to kind of dig in. What's their footprint on social? Does it even exist? If it doesn't exist, we need to kind of work on the foundation and get the house in order, as I like to call it, and get their socials in a good spot so that we can, go out to the world on social media first. And then we kind of incorporate influencers as we build that. Some of them have, like I was saying, more developed social channels, and it's about finding the right people. Who's going to speak for us? Who are we going after? We do a lot of like target audience work and research on exactly who they really should be targeting. Maybe it's their actual target audience, and maybe it's a different audience that hasn't been as receptive that we want to get in front of, this brand or this product. And then once we've got the audience, then I go to work and do what I do best, which is put together a strategy. Is it working with a bunch of nano influencers and creating like a small ambassador army? Is it working with one celebrity to tell, the brand story? Is it just doing a lot of paid, which we have an amazing paid team at Fiat Growth with tons of paid experts um, that put together really in-depth and creative paid strategies. And then I kind of help produce the content for that. So there's lots of different ways we approach influencer marketing, and all of our clients sort of have like different challenges, I guess, and are in different stages of the game when it comes to social media.
So cool. And I also love that are now getting this awesome experience of working for, a company that's been around for a few years. And I mean, it sounds like you're enjoying like the hustle of like, all right, you're going to come to me and you're like new to the space. And like those are more challenging clients, but like those are you feel those wins so much more. And so when it comes to like their challenges, like it's growth. I mean, because that's like, I don't know any business that doesn't experience a challenge in terms of growth. So I guess like my question is, so they come to you guys, they want to grow. Of course, you're going to dig into like what area and all that stuff. But like in terms of influencer marketing, I don't know. There's a lot of conversation. There's always like, well, how do I grow my Instagram account? Or how do I grow this? Or how do I grow that? And, people of your caliber will probably want to level set things, and be like, well, you want you want to avoid bots and you want to avoid, growth that feels inauthentic and you want to do it in maybe a measured way or at least a very strategic way. So like if people come to you and they're like, ooh, Fiat Growth, like awesome. And like, oh, you guys do influencer, amazing. I want to grow. I feel like you probably filter a lot of these calls, maybe, or somebody at your company does a lot. Like, how would you level set people who are coming to you and want to grow in terms of influencer marketing? Like, are there certain things that you repeatedly like tell people like, well, keep in mind this, keep in mind that? What do you tell people when they come to you and really want to grow?
Yeah, so I'll say one thing really quick. The growth part of Fiat Growth for the most part is affiliate marketing and partnerships, like strategic partnerships, and then like paid and performance marketing. And then I'm kind of like that other piece of the puzzle that's influencers. So they're growing not just with influencers. That's just one, sliver of the pie. And we have an amazing affiliate team that is like super well connected and, has all these different partners that they work with to grow user bases. So that's, one main piece of the pie. And then the performance side, running all the paid. And that, produces more automated growth, I would say. Um, but then the influencer growth, which is what we, our sweet spot, which is always fun to talk about, is very difficult when it comes to growing social channels. As we all know, we're at the mercy of the algorithm of the platforms that people are on. And we know from my rants, Jesse, that you and I had earlier about Instagram, that growing on Instagram right now is very challenging and everything is, recommendations based, the same way that kind of TikTok kind of led the way with. So it's difficult for brands to just like say, I want to increase by, 50,000 followers this year. Like that's tricky. We can obviously help and guide them, but that type of growth, those like guaranteed numbers are really difficult. What influencers do is bring the brand awareness. And I always say, it's a known thing that a conversion, so like signing up for something, entering your credit card, making a purchase, whatever, that conversion touch point that's different for every brand. It usually takes 8 like visual audio touch points of the same message in order for the person to actually like do that conversion. So influencer is one of those touch points, and if you're working with the same influencer multiple times or you're working with lots of influencers, those might count as like touch point 2 and 3 and 4 or whatever. But that's kind of how I think of it, is like it's one piece of the pie that gets you closer and closer towards that sale or that conversion. And it's important that all brands are activating on it, even if it's not instant, that instant gratification of today we had 75 new people sign up. Like it might be like 4 new people. But but if you're not chipping away at that, at those 8 touch points, you're missing out because every other brand is. Like everybody else is activating on social in some way, whether it's organically on their own channels, through paid, through influencers, usually a mix of all 3 of those. And if you're not doing it, you're not getting those eyeballs. So that's kind of what we help do. We help figure out ways to like increase those touch points in as many different places as we can, um, to get us closer and closer to those conversions. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, brand awareness is amazing. That's the world I come from in PR. But at the end of the day, any founder, any CEO wants sales. Like that's how businesses stay alive and thrive. So that's kind of like the way that we picture it as we put together our strategies.
Yeah, no, I love that. I appreciate that a lot. And I do. I think that like a lot of working with clients, it's a lot about level setting. It's a lot about like managing expectations and just like being on the same page generally. And I can only imagine, the types of people, like just people come to you, they come to everyone in our organization. They're like, oh, awesome. You work in influencer. Like, great. So like you can work magic and do all these incredible things for me. And you're like, I can, but like there's so many factors that will determine how it's done, how quickly it's done. And like, there's so much to it. So, anyways, I just appreciate that. I think it's good to level set. I want to talk a little bit more about like your career because I think that it's like been such a great ride for you. I've seen you again, like at some really incredible companies, including where you're at now. I want to hear from you. Tell us a low light and a highlight of your career.
I was thinking about this before. I think I'm not gonna go, like, super specific just because it's, like, hard for me to, like, remember specific things, but the lowest part of, like, when I look back at, my 10 to 15 years of working after college is just being in positions that, like, weren't a fit and not knowing what to do. It's like that feeling of feeling sort of stuck where you're like, "I should stay because I'm gaining knowledge and it's gonna help me get to where I'm going," and I'm the type of person that, like, does stick things out, which I think is, like, sort of a blessing and a curse. Um, but the lowest times that I can, like, remember are, like, being like, my first PR agency, I was working, when I was still an intern in the corporate, like, department, and I'm just not a corporate type of person, like, you can kinda see and probably hear from my voice, like, that's just not my vibe. I'm a lot more casual and, like, D2C just makes more sense to me. I like talking to the masses, and I feel like I like being part of something bigger, and the B2B more corporate environment just was not a fit for me, and if I would've left when I was uncomfortable, I probably would have never continued moving through the agency world like the way that I did. So I'm so glad that I did stick it out, but it's not no it's that, like, knowing and that decision of, like, should I keep doing something that maybe isn't a perfect fit, knowing that it might benefit my future, or should I, like, pivot and try something new that might, tick off a whole new exploring world, that might be a better fit. So I think that's the challenge for, like, young people in the workplace, in the corporate world is knowing when to jump and knowing when to stick it out. And I think people, back to my other point about like side hustles and all that, nowadays have it so much easier because you can try things at once. Like back in the old days, you couldn't like go on a podcast if you worked at an agency. They'd be like, "No, don't do that. Like you work for us. You can't be like talking about us on podcasts." Like it just wasn't a thing 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But now you have so much opportunity to like open an Etsy shop or do a coaching, side job or something and kind of like really figure out what you want. And it was a lot more difficult back in, the earlier 2000s to really like test and learn. Like you sort of just got a job and that's what your job was. So I think people these days have it a lot better when it comes to like that freedom of figuring out what is best for them.
Definitely. And I feel like there's a lot of companies these days, even that are still like, no, you shouldn't be going on a podcast. Like, and for a number of different reasons. Sometimes they just want to be the ones to be on it. Let's be real. And some people aren't really great at managing people and like uplifting them and knowing that, like, what's the phrase? Like, all ships, I don't know, something about tide and rising and ships and they all rise up together. But you know what I'm trying to say. And I firmly believe that. So like that's also just a missed opportunity. But yeah, it's hard, man, when you're a little unhappy. I almost feel like that's when it's the hardest. You're not like incredibly unhappy where you are. You're just like a little unhappy, or you might just see like other people around you like doing really cool things and like envy is real. And then if you have any like bit of loyalty in you, you've been appreciative and you've been treated well. I mean, like these good things almost make the decisions a lot harder. But at the end of the day, like, what would you tell somebody if they're at some place and like they're being treated pretty well, but there's just this little thing that keeps nagging at them, like, and the thing is like, do I go somewhere else because it could be better. Like it could be, there like what would you tell someone or how would you advise somebody who is in that sort of a position?
I know that is so tough because it's like the grass is not always greener, and I've seen it many times with my friends who have hopped agencies, and it's the same problems just under a different roof, or it's even worse problems at some time. So it depends. I mean, I think again, like now is the golden era of being able to kind of like figure out what works for you and test and learn, the same way we test and learn in marketing, test and learn with your career. Like you're able now to sort of like keep your full-time job and dabble on the side if you can. Obviously, don't do things that are going to like get you in trouble with your full-time job, like if that's your main stream of income. But I mean, I'm so lucky that my boss and my founders are so open with us and, want us to like explore and like do the work that we're doing for our clients, but, be out there in the world and still like living as human beings and not just clocking and clocking out. And that's our entire life. So I think there's more and more companies that are becoming like that. I think, in the big corporate world, it's probably a little bit more difficult, but I would say as much as you can dabble in things, and people have built entire like, 7, 8 figure companies just on their own like personal brand doing things. And if that's something that you're willing to commit to, I mean, it's going to be a lot of work, but if that's something that you're willing to commit to, like start dabbling in it and see if you like it. I mean, that was not to like totally ramble, but that was something that I discovered early on is I always was like, I was gonna be an entrepreneur. I always thought at one point I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. And like here I am still working for like a normal company. But I found that my sweet spot isn't being an entrepreneur. I like the stability of having a team and having a steady paycheck and benefits. Like that's where I feel comfortable. But that's why I do this side stuff, on my own because it kind of fills my cup on the entrepreneurial side. And I've sort of found a balance that works for me. Some people like Jesse, you're a perfect example. Like you're such an amazing entrepreneur. You like, started an agency and then pivoted to this amazing WIIM community that you're growing. And it's who you are. Like I just feel like you were born with that gift. And then there's people that are like VPs at McDonald's or PepsiCo that have worked their way up in corporate America who are like killing it at these massive corporations. And that's amazing too. It's like you got to find the balance that really, lights you up and makes you feel good. And I think it takes time. I mean, you and I are both in our 30s. Like this did not happen overnight. It wasn't like I graduated college and was like, I'm going to work 20%, for myself and 10% for this. And, like it took a lot of time to get kind of like where I feel comfortable and knowing that like I don't think I am sort of suited to fully go out on my own. I don't think maybe not for a while at least, would ever do that. Um, but yeah, I think it takes time. One other thing I want to say too about this is if you are in a toxic environment, and I'm talking to the agency folks because that's typically where it happened for me at least. There were many years of amazing, amazing people and amazing things in the agency world, but there were little pokes in my career of toxic people, toxic clients. If you're in those situations, I will say it's probably best to just exit stage right. I look back at some of those where I stuck it out and I probably shouldn't have. It was like borderline abusive level toxicity and nobody deserves that and nobody needs that. There's enough jobs out there where if that's your reality, you do not need to stick that out. So I will say that there are times when you just gotta grin and bear it and see what's coming through the next door. And then there's times where it's like you gotta peace out.
Definitely. And look, like as women too, like real talk, I mean, there are a lot of situations where it's almost like in our nature to like be fixers and to be people pleasers in a lot of instances. And there are so many like work scenarios that are incredibly toxic. Um, I worked at like a talent agency where it was horrifically toxic. So it doesn't even necessarily need to be like an ad agency or a PR agency. Like there are just companies that like they accept toxic behavior and you're never going to know that that's what you're getting into, of course, because everybody puts their best foot forward. But there is a moment where you get it, like you see it for what it is. And I agree, like if that is the case, and like talk about it with other people. First of all, I do think that's really important, because that perspective could be what you need to like have sort of like a confirmation of like, is this really as unhealthy as I think it might be? So like find people that you can speak with and be like, is this normal? Like, I just need a gut check. Like, is this type of behavior something that you experience as well? Because if you're not sure, it kind of like, I get it why people aren't sure. Like in any toxic relationship, whether it's like romantic or professional or whatever it is, like you're in it day to day, and it just becomes so normalized, and that's what makes it even more toxic. So just like talk to people about it. I think that's really good advice. And then like once you've gotten to the point that you can confirm, from like a healthy outside perspective as well, that like, no, like this is legit toxic. Then nothing, like the one thing that always needs to be prioritized is because like we started this conversation talking about what it is to be a parent, what it is to be, having like great bosses. Like you could be a parent, a sister, a boss, a this, that, and the other to other people, but you're not going to be able to be any of those things halfway decent unless like you are whole and you're good. So I appreciate you saying that. I think like, oh gosh, we're like running out of time, which makes me so sad because I have so many questions and topics that I want to chat with you about. But I would love to know, Katie, like what is something that no one knows about you? You heard it first on this podcast that Katie is fill in the blank.
I feel like the one that I, like, was prepared to say is, like, really stupid, and people are gonna be like, "Okay, womp womp." But I think it kinda ties back to what we were talking about. So, I'm an only child, which I guess isn't, like, that weird, but I think it is a very big tell of, like, why I am who I am. And now that I have 2 kids and I'm, like, watching siblings interact, and my husband has a sister, and, like, basically everyone in my life has some sort of sibling except for me, I'm realizing, like, why I became this way, and it is, like, so clear as day now that I am, like, so regimented and so self-motivated and so independent. It's like I, like, taught myself a lot of things. Like, I didn't have an older sibling, a younger sibling. I didn't have someone to sort of, like, go to when things were, annoying with my parents. Like, I was very much an independent kid that, like, figured stuff out very early and very easily. Like, I was good at kind of, like, hacking life in a way, and it, like, makes total sense. Like, now looking back at how I kind of, like, am super regimented with my schedule, and my kids are, super regimented with their schedule and work, and cramming it all in and making it all happen is very indicative of kind of how I was brought up. I mean, I have 2 amazing parents who were, gave me everything in the world, but a lot of my days were spent kind of with my own thoughts and with myself. So I think that that really did, like, kind of shape how I am today. And I think it's kind of just interesting to know that about me when you talk to me. Sometimes people are like, I can tell you're an only child. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult, but
Well, it's interesting because I asked you earlier, I was like, what's your superpower? And it's like time management and things like that. I actually like wonder if it's like some of the things that we feel are things that are like considered less than or different or something, mostly different. Like we're like, oh, I'm kind of different because I'm an only child. Most people probably have siblings, or I'm just different because I do this, that, and the other. I actually think more times than not, that is really our superpower, and all the things that you learned and all of the things that make up Katie as an only child, being, being with your own thoughts and all those things, like they actually really, in most instances, give us a really cool leg up. So I love that. I am so like stoked with our conversation today, like talking from like toxic environments to like, parenthood to, like growth strategies. And I don't know, we were sort of all over the place in all the best ways. I have a feeling that a lot of our listeners may want to reach out to you. So, besides maybe booking a mentorship conversation, a mentorship session with you because you're part of our mentorship program. So besides like making an appointment with you to, book a one-on-one mentorship session with you, because our members can do that, or searching for you in our membership director. You're just so active in our community. But, those of people who aren't necessarily in WIIM yet, and they are just like, oh, I want to reach out to Katie and like get to know her. And she seems great. And maybe we could do business together. What's the best way for people to reach you?
So I'm most active socially on social media on LinkedIn. So Katie Stoller, search for me. And then I have my own personal email if you want to just reach out. It's hello@katiestoller.com. And then if you want to reach out anything regarding Fiat, for any brands that want to get to know us a little bit more, our website's fiatgrowth.com. And my email address is just katie@fiatgrowth.com. But yeah, would love to chat on any channel. I'm really active in the WIIM Facebook page and Slack group. I like get so much amazing information from all the WIIM members. Everybody is like so awesome in WIIM. But yeah, definitely reach out. Would love to connect, and I would love to do a mentorship session with anyone interested.
I love it. Thank you so much, Katie. It's been awesome having you on again. We'll have to maybe get you on a third time. Who knows? And for everyone listening, we will see you next week. Thanks, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, we got to have you back. Check out our website for more ways to get involved, including all the information you need about joining our collective. You can check out all the information at iamwim.com. Leave us a review, a rating, but the most important thing that we can ask you to do is to share this podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Tune in next week.
Tune in next week.